Cass, do you want me to give you remote control so you can tap through while you're going? Okay, there you go. You should have it now. Are we at 10:15? Someone tell me. You're good, right? You have the control. Okay. All right, everybody. I think we are going to go ahead and get started. We have a lot of information to share with you all today. And we have not only an extremely long title, but we have a lot of information to share too. And we want to leave time for questions at the end. In the chat, you will see the email addresses for both myself, the coordinator of the college program, and Miss Cassidy Forth, who's going to start out our presentation today. Please feel free to email either one of us if you would like access to the accessible version of this PowerPoint for later. And that goes for those of you watching this in recording as well. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Miss Cassidy Forth and let her get started.
Yes, all right. So we are here to talk about promoting independence in the neurodivergent college student population after graduation from high school and after graduation from college. There we go. What is happening? All right, so we are from the college program for students with autism spectrum disorder at Marshall University. We are a subset of the West Virginia Autism Training Center. So we are one of their branches. At the college program, we specifically provide that individualized skill building and those therapy supports for students with autism spectrum disorder that are seeking a degree through Marshall University. And we do that through a mentored environment, including student support specialists, graduate assistants, and interns. This slide kind of goes over some of the things that we do at the college program that kind of help our students navigate that transition between high school to college and then college to employment, as well as make our campus as friendly and open as possible, as well as the community around us. So some of the things we do are campus-based training supports for staff. We do those for faculty, we do them for housing, we do them for staff in general campus, like dining halls and stuff, and also students. We always run trainings during WOW Week, which is our freshman week to help get freshmen as soon as they're coming in or learning about autism and things that are going on and how to be an ally. That kind of ties into our ally supporting autism spectrum diversity training that we created that teaches people how to be an ally for someone with autism. We do have our college program. We also do clinical placements for graduate students to give them a clinical professional environment before they go out into the workforce. We do transition consultation services. We have discovery groups, which is our social skills training. And then we also have our high school summer transition program, which started in 2008, which is for high school students, juniors and seniors that are going to come to our campus and take a one class, 3 credit hour class over the summer and practice that transition from high school over to college. And then we have started our employment preparedness workshop that runs for 3 days in June. That was established in 2016. And then very recently in 2021, we established a second 8 weeks course. That is a 1 credit hour course that's taught through our program at Marshall to help students prepare for all things employment. So before kind of digging into everything, we wanted to give an overview of autism because not everyone might be super familiar on this call. So in the DSM-5, they updated the diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder, and they labeled it as a complex neurodevelopmental disorder. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied this morning, with 3 tiers. So you have a severity level 1, which is someone requiring support, severity level 2, someone requiring substantial support, and severity level 3, someone requiring very substantial support. If you're familiar with the DSM-4, which was the previous diagnostic manual, you might be aware of Asperger's disorder. That was taken out in the DSM-5. It's no longer a diagnosis that they give, but it would be most closely associated with that severity level 1. Looking at some of the challenges someone with autism may experience, we have first up our language and communication challenges. Before going through these, I think it's very important to preface by saying that if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. All of these things are not things that every single student, adult, parent, child, anything will struggle with, but these are things that can occur and have occurred in students that we have seen. So they might have trouble with that difficulty in reciprocal conversation. That's that back and forth turn taking, us being able to communicate and talk about something, and then you respond to me and then I go back. That literal language, they use that a lot. They're very concrete sometimes, and they sometimes have trouble understanding pragmatics. So this can be sarcasm or anything along those lines. They can have difficulty with the tone and the speed of their speech. Now that can be their own tone and their own speed, but they also can have difficulty understanding other people's tones. They may have interruptions into your conversation that you're trying to have, or they might have trouble staying on topic with your conversation. You may see echolalia. That's that automatic repetition of vocalizations made by another person. That can be sounds, that can be words, that can be phrases. And then they may have difficulty understanding that metaphors and slang and a slower processing speed. And that slower processing speed, often we all talk pretty fast and we expect really quick responses, and someone who has trouble with slow processing speed may need a longer amount of time than we're typically used to giving someone to respond. Another challenge is theory of mind. That kind of has 3 parts. It's that ability to understand the beliefs, the desires, the knowledge of oneself and others, and to understand that people have beliefs and desires that are different from your own. So Bianca has different beliefs and desires and thoughts than I do, and I understand that because I don't have theory of mind challenges. Someone who does might not understand that Bianca thinks completely different than Cassidy. It's also that ability to understand and recognize that others are assessing and making judgments about us. So when you're listening to someone talk, you're listening to this presentation today, you're going to make judgments about myself, Bianca, but we understand that because we have not challenges in theory of mind. So we also can have social challenges. So those can be difficulty with nonverbal or non-speaking communication. That's your facial gestures, your eye contact, your body language, even leads into hygiene, because hygiene is a social construct. It can come across in delivering monologues or scripts about a favorite topic rather than taking that reciprocal communication that we typically do. Sometimes students with autism don't know the strategies to start or end a conversation. And then they may perseverate on a limited number of topics that they are passionate about and may not want to talk about topics that you're passionate about. A lot of things that we notice is that many of our students desire social interaction, but have a lot of difficulty knowing how to initiate and even maintain friendship amongst others. They may also have difficulty getting involved if they're stressed or agitated or highly stimulated. If there's a gathering they want to go to or a club they want to join and there's a ton of people there and it's a high stress or a high sensory environment, even though they super desire wanting to join that club, it might be something that's super difficult for them to do because of that situation or environment that it's in. That hygiene thing comes back into effect, that lack of awareness regarding their own appearance or others' appearance, not understanding the social construct that's behind hygiene and why we keep up with the hygiene that we do at this point in time. And they may make statements that are factually true, but socially inappropriate because of the lack of awareness that their statement might impact others around them. And then they may also talk out loud to self in public situations or be unaware that others can hear the content of the self-talk. We have our sensory challenges. Not everyone struggles with sensory challenges and everyone kind of struggles in different ways. You can be hyper or hyposensitive amongst all of the different senses. So you could be hypersensitive to visual and hyposensitive to tactile. It's important to know how a student is feeling sensory-wise, so you know what kind of challenges they're having, and to see if there's anything you can do to help support them better. You know, are they hypersensitive to the lighting, fluorescent lighting or other lighting? Are echoes in an environment going to, like a dorm room or a classroom, going to be a concern? And then unexpected noises like fire alarms, ambulances, police sirens, are those things that are going to create a sensory challenge?
I wanted to quickly mention, through our time at the college program, we've obviously seen students with different types of challenges within sensory realm. Vestibular is one that I wasn't expecting early in my career. We have some clumsy students at the college program. For instance, we have a young man who is vestibularly challenged, and we had a leak in our roof and he stood up on a chair, and I immediately became anxious because of how unaware of his body he is when his feet are firmly planted on the ground. So keeping in mind that it's not always that smell or taste or sight. We have a young man who for a whole semester would come in every morning with his shirt inside out and backwards. And we would have him go directly to the bathroom and flip it the right side. And he would first of all want to know why. And we would tell him that it's socially inappropriate to wear your clothes that way. It took us an entire semester to find out the reason he did it is because the way the tag in the back of his shirt felt on his skin was like razor blades. So it was a very simple solution to help that student with that sensory challenge. We just had to get his mom to buy him undershirts that were tagless. The other big thing to keep in mind when working with this population of students is the lack of body awareness or the oversensitivity to their body awareness. So we've had students who have really, really bad allergies and have ended up in the hospital because they've gone down to the front desk of their dorm saying it feels like a cinder block is on my chest, and they were worried about heart issues, when really he just needed to go get some Claritin. And that trip to the hospital ended him up in a psych ward because he kept repeating that he just felt like he wanted to die because he was so sick. We've had students that have come to us with scent issues and I mean almost gagging when that person walked in the room, and it took us several weeks to figure out he had gangrene on his big toe. He did not feel it. He just was completely unaware of the sensations of his body, and whereas you or I might feel an infection starting and limp because it hurts so badly, that student let it go on for several weeks that the infection turned to gangrene because they were so unaware of their body. So these are really important things to keep in mind when working with these populations.
Thank you. So all of these challenges can create a need for support. It's very different. It's very individualized. But some of the things that these challenges can create and things that they can do is they can alienate our students who might otherwise become a part of a typical social network. They can lead to very significant day-to-day anxiety and distress. They can cause misunderstandings in school and at work that could affect their reputation. If you think about students, talking to themselves in class, and someone else might not be aware why a student might be talking to themselves in class, then they could be labeled by someone else. They can lead individuals to use or abuse substances that help them relax and decrease stress. It's something that a student might want to escape if they're feeling that significant day-to-day anxiety and distress. It can very easily tie hand in hand to abusing substances.
I'm sorry. I just went full ahead on you, but I wanted to mention, as we're talking about fostering independence, we're talking about adults with disabilities. We're no longer talking about children who maybe are getting ABA therapy services. These are young adults. And if they're college age, whether they're on a college campus or not, the typical peers that they're surrounding themselves with are doing very normal things for that age group, like drinking and trying substances for the very first time. And when you have that extreme social anxiety, walking into a room full of people is made a bit easier when you do utilize a substance. And the first time a student, especially with autism spectrum disorder, goes to a party or a bar and they realize that 3 beers in, they're the really fun guy everybody wants to hang out with because he does funny and weird things, that's the first taste to a problem. We have had several students end up with DUIs, end up having to go down to the courthouse with one of us for smoking marijuana in the dorms and being the only one that got in trouble because they were smoking marijuana with football team members who were not going to get in trouble. So that theory of mind of these people aren't going to get in trouble for doing these things, but I don't have the same clout on campus as these people do, is important when you're talking to these individuals about how to foster independence. Sometimes I think with a student with disabilities, we leave out these typical conversations about sex and drugs that we're typically having with this age group. But it's vital that we have these conversations with this age group, whether we think they need it or not, because if they don't know, hey, when you're out, maybe limit yourself to 1 to 2 drinks and see how you feel. If you're driving, please don't drink at all. Sometimes we don't think we have to have those conversations because we don't expect that behavior from this population, but they're just as vital, if not more so vital, than having them with your average college-age student.
Yes. All of these can lead into legal and financial troubles. It can demonstrate vulnerability to bullies. Unfortunately, even in the adult population, there's bullies. It can exacerbate relationship problems. Many of our students want to have relationships with others, and that's another conversation I feel like we often don't have. Not only do we not talk about how to develop relationships, but we almost assume that people with autism don't want to be romantically involved with anyone. And I have found that is highly untrue. In fact, the majority of students I've ever supported desire to be married and have a typical American house life. It can create anxiety or distress over gender and sex roles. Many students are coming into college wanting to explore their gender or their sex, and no one's had these kind of conversations with them. And when you don't understand perhaps the social implications of gender roles as well, it can create an even more distressing thing to know what am I feeling? What is typical for me or typical for them? So these are all conversations that are really good to have with the adult population and those that are coming in as young adults. So transitioning now over into talking about kind of some differences between high school and college, that can be a big deal for our students coming in, as well as their parents who are still wanting to be super involved in their lives. They've been very involved up until this point. They always want the best for their students, but now they have this different role that's going to take place, because once you become a legal adult, your parents don't have jurisdiction over all of your things anymore. So in high school, your parent can access all your student records. They can do the entire accommodation process for you. most students, if they had an IEP in school, sometimes they don't even attend those IEP meetings. It's just the parent. And the parent has a huge advocacy role for the student, and they are really the one that's in their corner. When you're coming into college, regardless if you've had an IEP, accommodations, anything before, the college system doesn't really recognize that parent role anymore. They say, no, they're 18, they're an adult. So the student is responsible for advocating for their own needs and seeking out those opportunities. You know, the university is not going to come to a student and say, hey, we have these resources. They're not going to say, hey, if you had extended time in school, you can apply to get extended time here. There's not a lot of carryover between high school and college. And if a parent tries to call in, oftentimes they'll be met with, we need to hear from the student. We have to hear from the student. So because of FERPA, you know, that parent doesn't have access to student records without students' written consent, and students don't have to give it. That's completely fine. But that is a big transition piece where if a student hasn't had a lot of time to advocate for themselves or even know the accommodations that they've had, going into college can be challenging sometimes for them because they don't realize what they might need. The laws are different. So in high school, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act protects high school students. You also have your Section 504. Those will protect you in high school. In college, the IDEA Act is not in place, but we do have the ADA, which is the Americans with Disability Act. And then we also have Section 504, and the ADA is about the equal access to education versus where IDEA is trying to succeed and get you through college or high school. The ADA is more about giving you equal access to be able to complete college. The instruction is very different. This is very different for all students. That's not autism specific. It's very different for all students. But when you think of some of the challenges that students with autism might face, it can be an even harder adjustment when they haven't had a good transition period between high school to college. So in high school, teachers will modify curriculum if it's, you know, in their accommodations. They might alter the curriculum. They might pace assignments and give you, you know, extended weeks to complete something. They will shorten assignments that, you know, you might have to read. If you have a longer chapter book, they might give you a shorter amount. And they often reteach what you're reading in class. So if you did struggle with reading the content, or you did struggle understanding what you're reading, they're going to go back in and reteach and make sure you're caught up. You seldom would have to read anything more than once. And sometimes you can just listen in class and not ever have to open your textbook in high school, and you'll be perfectly fine. Because all of your high school teachers are going to be there behind you trying to make sure you're getting through. In college, professors are not required to modify any curriculum. They're not required to alter assignments, and they don't have to give extensions on any type of assignment. Typically, our professors on our campus are much more open to allowing students to have a little bit of extended time on some larger writing assignments, but not all professors are like that. And then we often will get time and a half on tests. But it is very different than what some of our students are accustomed to. And in college, you are assigned a lot of reading, a lot of writing, and some of it the professor's never going to talk about in class, but then they're going to test you on it. And you will have to regularly review those class notes and texts to make sure you're preparing for these tests. And it's a very different environment. And sometimes it's a struggle to get the skill set there for academics. So that self-advocacy we've mentioned earlier, that's a huge difference. So in high school, you know, your school districts, the teachers, you know, special ed teachers, anyone who works with a child or who's aware of a child will help identify if a student is struggling. There's a whole process for going through and identifying a student, screening them, doing testing, going through the whole process to see if a student is struggling and if they need accommodations and help. And then the school district itself is responsible for developing that educational plan to make sure that this student is going to succeed and graduate. In college, the student has to self-identify as needing a disability service. And they are that primary responsibility for self-advocacy and arranging all their accommodations. So if you're struggling in class, a professor is likely not going to ask you if you're struggling in class, and they, you can just go through and fail and no one would ever know that you needed an accommodation for something. Professors are open and helpful, but that it's almost like they really expect you, because you're an adult now, to come to them. And you can, we have students that sometimes will get really stressed about something, happen to fail an assignment, and then all of a sudden they have anxiety and they can't go to class. And they're so anxious because they're like, the professor's mad at me because I failed this assignment and now I can't go to class anymore. And in high school, if you stop coming to school, someone's going to come check in on you and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you not in school? Your parents might get in trouble for truancy. But in college, the professor will just let you not go and then fail you for missing too many. And it's not because the professors don't care. It's just they have so many students, so many classes, and they just think that if you are going to have a problem, you're going to come to them. And that's part of the reason we do the ally trainings that we do. And part of our program is to help bridge some of these gaps. So some of the known effective supports for the majority of the students we support is providing that safe space for them. That's why our offices are on campus in a very central, good location to students. We have couches, we have chairs, we have offices, we have places they can go and just take a break and relax. We provide a safe space outside of their dorm room, outside of their class, outside of the outside, so that they can come and have someone to talk to if they want to, or just have a break from everything that's going on. We also provide an identified go-to person. The day they get, well, actually before they even get on campus, they know who they're going to have in their corner. They know what student support specialists they're going to have. Very soon, as soon as they get on campus, they'll meet their peer mentor or a trusted ally, which is their graduate assistant, that they'll have. So they know coming in, this is the person I go to if I need something. But they also know that we will come to them if we haven't heard. And then we provide those social supports, planning and participating in those social activities, and the personal and daily living skills, because this is often the first time many students have lived away from their parents or spent significant time away from their parents. And then we emphasize identifying natural supports and teaching in natural environments. So if a student wants to learn how to socially participate in a club, of course we can do role-playing scenarios, but our favorite thing to do is to naturally, let's find a club you want to join and let's go together. So that it's a real life environment, a real life scenario, and you've seen how you did it, and now you feel successful because you've joined this club that you want to do and it wasn't that scary. Specifically looking at some examples of academic supports, we connect with professors weekly. That is our standard. Now, as I talk about these supports, please know that every single one of our supports is individualized to each of our students. And we also do keep in mind that some of the professors don't have updates for us every week. So we're not hounding professors that we might not need to check in with weekly, but our standard is weekly professor connection. This allows professors to come to us if there's problems, if there's concerns with attendance, if there's concerns with understanding material, do we need tutoring, all of those things. Is there a problem in class? Is a student pacing in the middle of the lecture? Is there anything that we can do to help advocate for our students as well as help the professors learn and adjust? So we do that. We also have that self-advocacy assistance. we're our students' biggest supporters, but we want them to be their own biggest supporters. So, you know, I might send that email the first time to the professor asking for something. The next time, let's sit together and we'll type it out. And really trying to help them learn that self-advocacy and how to continue to advocate for themselves. Because the truth is, they'll have us for 4 years, but then they leave and they won't have that support person. So we have to get that self-advocacy in place before they graduate. We do provide that graduate mentorship that lets them have someone who's a peer who's also going through school at the same time. We develop weekly schedules for them. Now, at the beginning, usually it's us kind of developing the schedules. As they transition and get older, we transition to them developing more schedules and helping them keep track of their assignments. We help break down assignments. You know, if you're given a 10-page essay, how do we break this down into smaller segments so it's not overwhelming and so you can start on it sooner? And then we do provide that proctored testing environment up in our offices so that they have a quiet space where they can have their extended time. And it's often the place they've studied at and stuff, so they feel more comfortable.
I'm sorry, but to give you a quick idea about the fostering of the independence piece, like Cassidy said, for a freshman, I would create all of those templates. The GA would follow through with those templates throughout the year. But then by that junior year, we would hope that the student would utilize the templates that they found work best for them and sit with that mentor to plan out each week. I have a current senior who is here all summer. He's very upset about it because he has to do 300 hours of an internship. So while I helped him to find that internship and get those papers signed and get all the head work done, yesterday was his first day, and I set the meeting with the internship coordinator, and we met together to figure out what he would need to do for the week. And I had him open up in his Google Drive a template of his visual schedule. And as we were speaking, had him write in, what am I doing this week for internship? And then his goal by today was to send me that Google Drive with a way to track his hours. So I didn't give him a template. I asked him to create that template because when he has ownership over that, he is much more likely to continue utilizing it and filling it out than if I had made the template for him. It's almost a second thought for him if I create it for him now. But because he has ownership over that document, he's filling it out regularly and had it done within an hour. So that came from 4 years of stepping stones to get him to that point. So fostering independence for these types of individuals really is a stepping stone type of situation where you assess at the end of each and every term that you're working with them, what goals do we have for the next semester and how do we implement them so that by the end, you're ready to go out into the workforce. So socially, we provide a lot of social supports. We run our own social skills and wellness groups and discovery groups. We run Friday social events the entire semester long. We have expressive arts groups. We have multimedia groups, which sometimes game or talk about the psychology of gaming. We do that club and campus activities exploration. We really try to get students involved in at least one club on campus that they're interested in. Some of us are involved in multiple clubs. We have students in fraternities. And then we also provide counseling services in our offices. But if they don't want to take counseling services in our offices, we also will help connect them with counseling on campus. Some strategies for social interaction. Just a good reminder to remember most students with autism will desire social interaction, but they don't always have that skill set to seek out the social opportunity on their own. Many of my students are aware of they have a struggle here in the social piece, but they're not sure exactly what it is or how to go about fixing it so that they can feel like they're involved and included. They often have reported that in order for them to be successful socially, that they need the information necessary to navigate through the social climate on campus. So they want information on like
how do I go initiate in the clubs? How do I talk to this group of people? How do I differentiate between like really good friends and kind of acquaintances? There, it's all of those type of things. But once we've kind of learned the web of all the social constructs, then many of our students are very successful forming a great social network on campus, honestly. And then just always remember to be an ally to students. A lot of times, I think that we're nervous to have these types of conversations. We're nervous to point people in the wrong direction. We're nervous that, if a student's coming to you talking about relationship dating or, their sex life or something like that, it's awkward. But just remember, you're not going to help anyone if you never ask. And if you're not willing to be open and talk about it, then they're just stuck and they're not able to gain those skill sets. And also remember, effective strategies don't have to be complicated or costly. Students who are struggling, we had a student that would go into the main lobby of the dorm room and wear their robe or their boxer shorts, and that's not somewhere they can wear that in the main lobby area of the dorm room. So you can set up and just say, hey, put this on your door. Make sure you got your shirt and shoes. It's that visual reminder. Same thing with the keys and the student IDs and stuff.
I actually just learned the background to this story. So this was one of our very first college program students ever. So we've always used this slide as a way to say, like, it's as simple as making a Word document with some pictures and visuals and taping it to a student's door. But that student wore his robe in the lobby because the residence life staff said in the very first hall meeting, this is your home now, treat it like home. And he took that very literally. And at home, he would wear his robe around the house. And so it took a lot of time for us to get him to understand the why it was not okay. Well, if this is my home, why can't I treat it the way I would home? So that literal language is a strong thing to remember when working with this population.
All right, and then just always remember, like we've said before, you're really thinking student first strategies, those person-centered supports. Think about when you're asking your students and explaining, the purpose of them attending or the purpose of them meeting with you or the purpose of something. Explain what the purpose is and their desired takeaway. So if you're talking about health and wellness and making sure you're tailoring them specifically, like we said at the very beginning, one person with autism, one person with autism. You can't generalize blanket supports across everyone or blanket goals and it be effective for every student. Your purpose would be to provide entertainment, help them escape from that mundane routine, help them get involved on campus, find social activities, or get involved in life, depending on how you are supporting your adults. Build friendships. They might learn something. They can get more involved with your program, our program, a program, and out in the workforce. And they're building that social network and finding acceptance in themselves and into the community. And the desired takeaway would be that they're going to have a better health and lifestyle, and they're going to have better mental health, and they're learning how to forgiveness and letting go of things and not be so hard on themselves and building self-esteem.
Is that me? It's me. I'm going to stop remote control. Can I ask Cassidy that you take a few screenshots so that we can post about our thing? I couldn't do it because I'm sharing my screen and I would have messed you all sorts of up more than I already had every time I switched the slide unnecessarily on you. If we have any takeaways today, it's that I am terrible with technology. So when we talk about fostering independence, Cassidy just gave us a great overview of how we do that within the college program while we have those students pursuing their college degree with us at Marshall University. We want to talk about employment. The goal of the college program is, yes, let's get that 4-year degree. Let's get you the higher education that you want. But really, when parents are sending their students here or vocational rehabilitation is making the suggestion to a student about our program, it is for the goal of employability. So why are we talking about employment as it refers to independence? Employment affects quality of life. The lack of work affects an individual's quality of life post-graduation. Any individual, not just our neurotypical friends. Employers are missing out on intelligent, dedicated employees. For those bigger organizations that currently don't have some type of diversity or neurodiversity initiative, they're missing out. And I'll talk a little bit about why that is. 75 to 85% of adults with ASD do not hold a full-time job. That is way too high of a number. We are actively working at the college program to make that number hopefully one day 0. I know that's a lofty goal, but it is one of ours. It's reported that only 14% of individuals with ASD were engaged in paid community employment. Many individuals with ASD wind up in part-time or low-wage jobs. This is true for some of our graduates. You know, I have graduates who have a 4-year bachelor's degree in computer science, and they're working at Kroger at home. I think that I would love to see the statistic for your neurotypical college students after graduation right now, because I have a feeling that despite the job market, that college grads are having a tough time getting jobs within their field as it is. Schools often focus on hard skills. So we're teaching them, you know, let's organize your week. Let's figure out how to problem solve. But employers often rank soft skills as top ranked, and those are not things we're typically teaching throughout these collegiate or even high school years. Let's see if I can maybe, there we go. So the quote on the page, society loses out if individuals with autism spectrum disorders are not involved in the world of work or make other kinds of contributions to society. We truly believe that here at the college program. What you can see on the other side of the screen is a text message exchange between one of our alumni students and his former support specialist. Please ignore the typos from the support specialist, but the circled part is what we want you all to see. So he alerted his former support specialist that he was the most productive turning operator at the plant he works at. He was so proud, and it's because of his neurodiversity that he is such a dedicated employee. He is dedicated to the systems that he's learned, the routines that he's learned, and he does his best once he's in the groove to be the best at everything he's asked to do. College graduates with autism have the intellectual capacity and intrinsic motivation that employers seek, but they often lack the charisma that networking with employers demands. So you can't buy charisma, you can't make it, and you sure can't fake it. And it is one of those soft skills that you typically build throughout your life because you're watching other people and seeing how they do it. A lot of folks with autism are not watching their peers to learn how to be something in the soft skill area. So it does make it difficult for them to know how to network and feel comfortable in networking situations. So the fears regarding employment, this is a perspective from an individual with ASD we've worked with. They said that non-merit-based factors such as networking, popularity, charismatic self-presentation will prove to be more important for my career advancement than my actual abilities or commitment to doing my job well. It's a true statement. And knowing that is a part of that. How do we help our individuals with disabilities do better and become more employable? Knowing this from the jump helps you to help that student or individual create and work on those softer skills. So emerging categories that create fear when it comes to employment for individuals with disabilities is sustainability within the career. We have a lot of students get that first job out of college in their area, But for instance, we had a young man start at an accounting firm, and on the first day, that social awareness went out the window. He put his feet up on his manager's desk while they were hanging out and talking for the day. And then after he did that, and his boss said, it's socially unacceptable for you to put your feet on anyone's desks, even your own, but especially your boss. He then let his boss know that he was leaving for the day because his back really hurt. And so that student did not sustain that job. He actually was fired very quickly, despite the employer's willingness to understand how autism affected him and to be direct. It was easier to go out and get a new employee that wouldn't have those issues than to work with that individual to become better. Difficulty with social communication, the current economy, workplace expectations, lack of experience. A big one that we will talk about is the lack of experience and issues surrounding disclosure. Career satisfaction for individuals with autism, and then sensory issues that may be involved in a plethora of different ways. So when we look at this list, and I'm not going to read through them all, these are the top rated soft skills that are integral to employment. So as you glance through those, I think we could agree that some of those are real strengths of a lot of individuals with autism spectrum disorder. Creativity, for instance, being able to be creative. But a lot of them, more so than strengths, would be challenges. Taking leadership within a room, being able to walk in a room and exude confidence. When you have social anxiety, that's really difficult. Self-management and time management skills are huge. That's why we work on them from the jump here at the college program. Well, this is new. I did not know those were things. What you see here is our former director's dissertation was directly related to employment and what employer expectations were versus individuals with ASD's expectations at work. This particular list is work-related issues that each employer that responded to her survey and each individual with ASD that responded to her survey listed as the most important skill and area to the least important skill. So if you look, the ideas for what is expected for an individual with ASD is pretty different aside from the interview, from what an employer really cares about. So we're already starting on a different playing field. When a student with autism walks into a room to interview, they are already looking at the wrong types of work-related issues to be worried about. So they really believe personal hygiene was of utmost importance. And while we do preach, and I think a lot of career services preach, do your best to look nice and smell nice and shower, do all those things. So it's something they're often hearing is really important to a job, but it was ranked least important to employers. And I don't think we're coming from a mindset of the employers think you can show up in your pajamas and unshowered. I think they're coming from a point of all of these other skills and things are much more important to me than if you show up in a wrinkled collared shirt. So keep in mind that students with autism spectrum disorder are already starting out on a different playing field because of what they believe the best expectations are. One thing we can do to help forge pathways for individuals with disabilities when it comes to employment is help them prepare to sell themselves through self-awareness. We all know that self-awareness can be really difficult for anybody, but especially with folks that have difficulties with theory of mind from the jump. So when you're working with an individual who's looking to be employed, you want to sit down with them and really get into the nitty-gritty before that interview while you're helping them practice. Many people assume they know themselves just by living in their own skin, especially individuals with autism spectrum disorder. That theory of mind challenge is steady when it comes to employability. So you're going to want to sit down with them and ask, have they taken the time to write down what they believe about themselves? What do they believe their disability, how do they believe their disability plays a role in what they believe about themselves? And what about others? What do they think other people think of them? And this one will be really difficult for them to answer, but hopefully you would be an ally to that person who knows them fairly well and can kind of get the ball rolling, or include folks that do know them really well to get that ball rolling. Having this information before they ever sit down to interview will truly help. Helping them to understand what they're good at and what they're challenged by. So knowing your strengths, we all know that this is an important part to the process of finding and getting the job. But it's also important to the sustainability of a job. Knowing your strengths and your weaknesses in the workplace can help you to set appropriate goals with your employer. So what do they believe they're good at? What have others told them, even through high school? What did your English teacher that you worked really, really well with tell you about your strengths? Well, what did that chemistry professor who you did not work well with tell you about your strengths and weaknesses? Getting that information and having it written down in a way that they can see it and truly let it sink in will be really important. How do I embrace my strengths while being honest about my challenges before they step foot in that interview or answer that phone call for that interview? Knowing that specific question's answer will be vital to their success. Recognizing your weaknesses and emphasizing your strengths. This is, what the past few slides have been about, but what you see here on the screen is directly from college program students who have been out into the workforce. So while being challenged to multitask, I'm excellent at focusing on a challenge and seeing it through to the end. So yes, that student did say, I can't really multitask. I'm not very good at that. But if I know what I am working on and it is a single task, seeing it through to the end is very easy for me. So he's highlighting both a challenge and a strength. The same goes for the next. I would not consider myself well-spoken on the phone or in front of groups, but my written communication is excellent, and I am great at staying in contact through email. This is something they could even provide examples of, written communication that they've had in the past that proves that. Sometimes if plans change, I can get a little fumbled or disorganized, but I am really great at keeping schedules, arriving on time, and I am extremely reliable with those. So as we talk about getting the job, we definitely want to take a look at, there we go. Things like establishing expectations early on with an employer. Asking for clear guidelines of job duties, preferably in the written form so that that student can refer back to those. Emphasizing those strengths that we've helped them figure out that exist. Minimizing surprises by asking about typical work environments, especially down to the details of, for lunch, is there a specific hour that we should take it? Am I expected to leave and come back? Am I expected to bring my lunch? What do the majority of employees do, and how can I align with that? Where do they socialize? Is there a happy hour on Thursdays that I could join so that I can start integrating myself into this new group of people? And when it comes to rules in the office as it pertains to things like social media and cell phone usage, if I have a down moment and I pick up my phone and open the Facebook app, it's obviously not preferred. But am I allowed to even have my cell phone out and on during work hours? What if I'm expecting a very important call from a doctor's office? Those details and knowing them up front will be vital. Finding out who to go to for help, even if that's a flow chart of, if you have an IT issue, go to this person in IT. Here's his number and his office. If I have a question about a client, who do I go to? If I have a question about taking time off or vacations, who do I go to? Helping them to develop that flow chart so that they can have it handy and readily available. Make an informed decision about disclosure before you submit your resume. And we will talk more about disclosure in a second. Tips for helping students with disabilities with applications. If they lack work experience, help them reach out and find some volunteer work. They can build valuable workplace skills and provide employers examples of their work. Match skills directly from the job duties and skills required in the job posting. So if you have really just some volunteer experience at a local library, but you can find a way to talk about your use of the computer systems and you're going for an IT job, do that. And then explain to the student not to rush. Fill in the answers carefully and thoroughly, and always have someone proofread that. Using social scripts as a tool for preparing for a phone interview. We do have an example of that on the other side of the screen here that we have used in the past. So having something like this ready for a phone interview, or even creating a script to do a mock interview before interviews that the student can read and practice with someone in front of a mirror, would be incredibly helpful. Don't forget that preparation for the job is unique to that individual person. Owning their strengths and weaknesses will be important. You should help the individual to do their research on an employer, just like you would if you were getting ready to go for an interview. You're going to look up online. One important thing we do with our students in particular is before they apply, we look up the website and all of the information we can, but we specifically look through their HR and their diversity or neurodiverse initiatives. Because if you find an employer who lists that initiative on their website, you can talk about that and help it lead to your disclosure in the interview if that's what you decide to do. Tailor your plans on disclosure and accommodation requests based on your research. Ask for help. Don't try to apply and prepare for the job on your own. There's always room for improvement. So I know that there is a concurrent session happening right now. And if you are in this session, I hope that you will watch the recording of the disclosure in employment specific session that's going on right now. We do have some information about disclosure in here, but I'm sure that there is even more that could be dug into. So please watch that recording if you're here and not there right now. So reasons a student may not want to or may want to disclose their diagnosis: if the disability will affect their job performance, if they need to request accommodations up front, if they're applying to a very large company, especially a large company with that diversity initiative listed on their website, and if they're applying to a business known to have hired individuals with disabilities before. Reasons they may not want to disclose: if the disability is not relevant to meeting the actual job application criteria, if they fear that they won't be considered for the job or fear discrimination in the workplace, or if the disability will in no way impact their job performance. There are several types of disclosure. Partial disclosure would be reporting a disability, but not a specific diagnosis to an employer so that you can access accommodations. So this may look like, I have some sensory issues when it comes to fluorescent lighting. I recognize that in the office I am being given that those overhead fluorescent lights are there. Would it be feasible to provide me a floor lamp so that I can keep the low lighting that I need to work my best? Or can I bring one from home? And then full disclosure would look like reporting the specific diagnosis to an employer so that you can access accommodations and support. So instead of the sensory issue with the low lighting, I have autism spectrum disorder, and that affects a lot of my sensory input. The first thing I will need is the help with the lights. I also will need very direct communication from my direct supervisor. When it comes to providing me tasks, I need to know strict deadlines, because if I don't have a deadline, I might not understand the full extent of what I should be doing when. Timing of disclosure is a very important piece to discuss with individuals with disabilities. And I would have this conversation now. If you have someone who's not quite ready to look for jobs, start talking about disclosure so that they already have an idea in their head of what they're going to need to assess to make that decision. You can disclose on your resume or application, but we only recommend that when applying for government positions or at a company with a hiring program or initiative for people with disabilities. Disclosure in the interview face-to-face is the most welcome type of disclosure by smaller employers. Disclosure to human resources is most welcomed by larger employers. So larger companies that have a well-established HR, that is typically the preferred version of disclosure. And then disclosure on the job is recommended if you recognize you need accommodations, need better understanding at work, or trust those within your company. When we talk about employer preferences with disclosure, whoop, see, told you, those slides just get away from me. Timing, over 60% of employers prefer interview disclosure. 78% prefer face-to-face disclosure. Companies with more than 151 employees prefer disclosure through their human resources office. And between 18 to 25% of employers chose for disclosure to not happen at all. That's got to change. But those are the statistics based on the dissertation of our former director. Accommodations and your rights at work. These, and I'm not going to read through them all, but these are the types of accommodations we have helped students to get in a workplace in the past. Obviously, some of them are more normal. Some of them are for, folks that are neurotypical as well. I just purchased a brand new chair for an employee. He does not have a diagnosis or disability, but the back support for his chair was definitely needed. It was flimsy, and it definitely was not allowing him to work in the most productive way. When we talk about rights, Title I of the Americans with Disability Act prohibits discrimination in employment and requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities. Employers are only required to provide accommodations for employees who are experiencing workplace problems because of a disability. Unless you let your employer know that you have a disability, the employer is not obligated to consider accommodations under ADA. So disclosure is vital if you would like to be covered under this act. You can request an accommodation at any time during the application process or once you are employed. You can request an accommodation even if you did not ask for one when applying for a job or after receiving the job. It is better to request an accommodation before your job performance suffers or conduct problems occur. I'd like to give you guys a few examples of that. We have a recent graduate who currently works in a lab. He received his master's degree in digital forensics. He is incredibly intelligent. He's been working successfully for about 6 months within this lab. And there are tests periodically that he needs to take that will assess whether he gets demoted or promoted within that lab. Because he chose not to disclose, he had been taking those tests with regular time in the way that the employer requires it, which is written. After his second test, he gave us a call and asked what he could do or how he could approach HR about disclosure and getting testing accommodations, because his second test went so poorly because of the format it was given in, as well as the time constraint, that he was being demoted because of that test score. So I helped him to write a script to approach his HR professional the very next day, explaining and disclosing his diagnosis and a need for accommodation for test time extensions with tests, which would be double time for that particular student due to processing speeds, as well as the ability to type or verbally give his answers. We helped him to provide that documentation with his psychological evaluation we had on file. And he was able to retest with those accommodations in place because he chose to disclose and provide the need for the accommodation. So instead of being demoted because of a lack of disclosure, he is now being promoted because he was given the appropriate accommodations so that he could do as well as he possibly could on that test. When we talk about forging pathways, you always want to utilize your local resources. For us on a college campus, that's career services. We do train them with our allies training so they understand autism and the basics of what that means when it comes to employability and working on looking for jobs. For you, that may be a local organization like United Way or Goodwill that is able to help students vocational rehabilitation within your state. That the goal for that service is to help anybody find employment and prepare for employment. For vocational rehabilitation services, specifically individuals with disabilities, is their job to help them find and gain meaningful employment. So tap into those natural resources you have in your area. Train them on that disability. Be the one to talk to them and explain these are the challenges this individual has due to this disability, and help do that prep work and introduce that individual to that resource to get help with finding jobs. Typical barriers to employing individuals with ASD to keep in mind as you're working with individuals with ASD looking for employment. If you're looking to help them foster independence, it's important that they understand the barriers they're up against. There is a great need for employers and peers to have a better understanding of and more education about ASD. So if you have someone that's willing to disclose, potentially seeing if there's an organization like ours who has a standard training that would come in and explain to the coworkers, the employers, this is what ASD looks like on the job. And this is how you can be a better ally within the workspace. Have issues with social interactions and social communication. Sometimes that's as easy as being a consistent ally to that student or helping them to find a mentor, a peer within the organization who's willing to be that person for them. I receive messages consistently from former students, alumni that are in the workspace asking questions like, why do, when I come in every morning, when I say hi to Billy, why does he respond with live in the dream? What does that mean? And so we've all heard that. And typically we would understand that, it's just a very common response to say, I'm doing okay, but things are kind of rocky. And so having someone to explain that to that alumni was super helpful in helping them to build relationships with their peers, a better understanding those social interactions. They may not understand or meet work expectations. They may need clearer direction or directions given to them in a different way, maybe written, maybe step by step. A need for job coaches or mentors within the workplace. There's a lack of self-advocacy skills, helping them to build better self-advocacy skills. Having challenges with managing their anxiety in the workplace. Is there someone in HR that they can go to and talk to about that anxiety or the challenges that they're having? Who can they go to on this team? Issues with disclosure. So that goes along with the lack of self-advocacy. Having sensory issues combined with a lack of self-advocacy skills and having issues with disclosure must be a terrible place to be in as an employee. Sometimes having over-involved parents, Jimmy may go out and get a brand new job, but then his mom is worried about his performance. So she calls the boss to say, my son with autism is your new employee, Jimmy. And I just want to see how he's doing. That is a huge violation. But these parents have worked for the past 18 some years as the biggest advocate for that individual. And then a lack of transportation. A lot of students that we work with on the spectrum do not have their license. Some do, but most don't. And helping them get connected to resources to either figure out the local bus system or how they're going to get to work and home from work, and troubleshooting with them. What if the bus doesn't show up on time? Will be very important. So what we do know is employers who have supported people with ASD in the workplace rank the chief concern regarding employment as having strong networking skills. Individuals with ASD may not fully understand or be aware of the challenges that they have with networking. Individuals with ASD are not only just employable, but also have the potential for making tremendous contributions to their workplaces. These are just a few career planning resources I wanted to leave you with. So the first is the Workplace Recruitment Program for college students with disabilities. This is all disabilities, is a recruitment and referral program that connects federal and private sector employees nationally with highly motivated college students and recent grads with disabilities who are eager to prove their abilities in the workplace through summer and permanent jobs, also internships now. The Autism Speaks Employment Toolkit is great and vast. That link is also available on this PowerPoint. And then the most important tip I can give for helping a student find employment is to search for inclusive employers and apply to jobs through a separate portal. So if there is a portal like Workforce Recruitment or Microsoft's Diversity program, employees that do have a disability should always go through those separate portals. It is more likely that they're going to get seen versus going through, Indeed.com or being able to go straight from the website. If there is an initiative, make sure that student knows to go through that portal. All right, we did it. I am now going to stop sharing my screen. So if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask or is interested in more information, I would love to answer those now. You can simply unmute if you do, or if you feel more comfortable, you can go through the chat.
Sure, I have a question.
Sure.
First, thank you for y'all's presentation today, and thanks for the work y'all do. There's been a lot of consideration about the issues that arise when autistic folk, queer neurotypical spaces, both in a college and professional context. Obviously, very important to discuss.
Yes.
My question is, in the work that y'all do, how do you provide tools for navigating neurotypical spaces while not quashing the authentic autistic joy that comes from authentic autistic impulses? How do we balance giving needed social tools, giving the ability to decode switch, which obviously is often needed for people's safety and to thrive, while not encouraging autistic folk to spend all their energy solely catering to neurotypical comfortability?
I love that question, Cortland. I know Cassidy is switching to her phone so she can go back to work. But I love every bit of that because our goal at the college program and here at Marshall University is to allow that autistic joy to happen. We say if it's not hurting anybody, especially, when we think about a student who paces to focus in the classroom, we have some professors who will say like, that is distracting to my other students. So the first thing we will do is there a space in the room that wouldn't distract other students? Maybe the very back of a lecture hall. In our offices in particular, I think that if you surveyed our 70 students, that 70 of them would say, I feel comfortable being myself in those offices. But sometimes out on campus, I realize the need to mask. And unfortunately, that's something that's mostly ingrained in them through their high school experiences and outside in society experiences. But when we do our allies trainings and we do allies trainings for every department on Marshall University's campus and out in the community. The goal is to help them to understand that it's not to lessen the behaviors or take away the behaviors and the uniqueness of the individuals that are autistic. It's simply to help the world accommodate them and their needs. And we get a lot of pushback sometimes. Some older professors might, well, why should I accommodate that small group of people when I have this larger group of people? But to me, they're not seeing the uniqueness and the incredible strength in having a neurodiverse individual in your presence, in your classroom, in your organization. And so that is ultimately the goal, is to teach others to be understanding of those quirks. I love the words autistic joy. That just made me smile so big, to keep that a part of the student's life. And then the same goes for employers, teaching them through training and allies trainings that to let those things happen. Beautiful things will come from it if more people can learn to accommodate the need for neurodiverse people in the rooms that we are in.
Appreciate the thoughtful response. Thank you very much for your time.
Of course, thank you. I will use autistic joy forever now. You've changed my life.
Please do. It's
I love that.
a beautiful thing.
It really is. I know that somebody had quickly, I know we're closing in like 2 minutes. If you guys do have more questions, feel free to email me and Cassidy. Our stuff is right there in the chat. Mine is Hines, Hynes @marshall.edu, and Cassidy is 4th8 @marshall.edu. We love continuing these types of conversations. So don't feel like if you ask a question, it's just taking up our time. We love these types of discussions. I know that somebody in the chat had mentioned it doesn't feel like high schools are truly preparing students for the expectations of college. I agree with that across the board. I always was the person in the room saying, like, why aren't we teaching students how to do their taxes? That I think across the board for both neurotypical and neurodivergent individuals, that high schools need to do and be better. I think particular high school teachers are very good at understanding that and trying their best to offset it. But if you have 500 teachers and 350 of them function from that understanding, that you're still missing a lot of students out there. Thank you, Jordan. I am so grateful for you all. Is there anybody else? I didn't realize we had until 11:45. Is there anybody else that wants to ask a question while we're on here? I thought we were closing at 11:30, so I apologize. If not, totally okay. Feel free to email Cassidy and I. We're happy to continue the discussion. And as you guys sign off, Cassidy and I will stay on here. Please make sure to stop by the vendors before the next session, y'all, while you guys are in break. I've taken up 15 minutes of your 30-minute break, but you do have 15 minutes to go stop by and see those vendors. So we are all done here. If anybody needs anything, feel free to reach out to Cassidy and I. And thank you for your time and coming to listen.
Thank you both so much. Such a wonderful presentation.
Of course, thank you, Courtney, and thank you for making the PowerPoint accessible for us so that we can get that out to people. We appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. Anytime I can help. Thanks, everyone. See you back shortly, and make sure you stop by the vendors.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Bye. Thanks again, Courtney.